A knife that fires a bullet from its handle. A canister that detonates with the force of a car bomb, legally shipped to your door in 2 separate boxes. A blade that launches itself through the air at 39 miles per hour. These aren't military prototypes. They're not black market contraband. And the final gadget on this list looks so illegal, you'll assume it's a prop. It isn't. They look lethal, tactical, even restricted. But every single one of these is completely legal in Europe and the UK. Some exploit loopholes. Others hide in plain sight. A few were designed specifically to navigate laws most people don't even know exist. Here are 21 gadgets that prove legality has nothing to do with how dangerous something looks. Civilian flamethrowers. At first glance, this shouldn't be legal. It's a handheld device that projects a stream of burning liquid up to 25 feet. Not a blowtorch, not a propane weed burner. A legitimate flamethrower, the kind that looks like it belongs in a military arsenal. Companies like Cleveland-based Throw Flame and Ion Productions build these for civilian use. They're marketed for controlled burns, clearing heavy brush, and melting ice in industrial settings. The Boring Company's Not a Flamethrower was essentially a glorified torch. These are the real thing. And in 48 U.S. states, they're perfectly legal. In parts of Europe, restrictions vary, but ownership isn't universally banned. When a snowstorm buries equipment or invasive plants overtake land, this solves the problem faster than anything else on the market. Tannerite binary exploding targets. This looks like it belongs in a restricted facility. Tannerite is a binary explosive. It's sold as 2 separate components, ammonium nitrate and aluminum powder, both completely inert on their own. Mix them together and you create a target that detonates when struck by a high-velocity rifle round. The explosion is massive. Videos show refrigerators disintegrating, cars lifted off the ground, clouds of smoke billowing hundreds of feet into the air. Because the components are sold separately and remain inert until mixed, it exploits a legal loophole in many jurisdictions. It's not classified as an explosive until the moment you combine it. Long-range shooters use it to confirm hits at distances where spotting scopes fail. When you see the explosion, you know you connected. Spring-powered ballistic knives. It doesn't look civilian, but it is. This is a knife with a detachable blade that ejects itself at the press of a trigger. The blade launches up to 16 feet at speeds reaching 39 miles per hour, powered by a compressed spring mechanism inside the handle. Originally designed for Soviet special forces in the 1970s, ballistic knives gained notoriety in the U.S. during the 1980s. While interstate commerce is banned in America and possession is illegal in the UK, certain jurisdictions in Europe still permit ownership under specific conditions. The mechanism is purely mechanical. No explosives, no propellant, just spring tension and a release lever. In survival scenarios where creating distance matters, this was designed to give operators a ranged option without ammunition. The Umarex Air Saber Elite. At first glance, this shouldn't exist. It's not a bow. It's not a rifle. It's a hybrid that uses compressed air to launch arrows at velocities that rival traditional firearms. The Air Saber bridges a critical gap for hunters in areas where firearms face seasonal or regional restrictions, but air-powered devices fall under different regulations. The arrow leaves the barrel with enough kinetic energy to ethically harvest large game, deer, hogs, even larger targets in controlled environments. It looks like a crossbow married a scuba tank, but because it uses compressed air instead of gunpowder, it often sidesteps firearm classifications entirely. For hunters navigating complex legal landscapes, this represents a technological workaround that's both effective and compliant. Ghost Gun Receiver Kits. This looks like it belongs in a restricted facility. These are 80% receivers, unfinished frames that haven't crossed the legal threshold to be classified as firearms. They're sold as blocks of polymer or aluminum with pre-marked drill points. Finish the machining at home with a Dremel or drill press, and you've built a functional firearm. No serial number, no background check, no registry. Recent regulations are closing this loophole, but millions of these kits are already in circulation across Europe and the US. The legal gray area exists because the unfinished frame isn't technically a gun until you complete the final manufacturing steps yourself. For hobbyists interested in gunsmithing or those living in jurisdictions with restrictive licensing, these kits offer a path to legal ownership that bypasses traditional retail channels. Handguns with stabilizing braces. At first glance, this shouldn't be legal. This is a heavy handgun, often built on an AR-15 pistol platform, with a brace attached to the rear. Officially, it's designed to strap the weapon to your forearm for stability, but it can also function nearly identically to a shoulder stock, effectively turning the pistol into a short-barreled rifle without triggering the $200 tax stamp and registration requirements of the National Firearms Act. Millions of these braces are in circulation. The ATF has flip-flopped on their legal status multiple times, creating a regulatory whiplash that leaves manufacturers and owners in constant uncertainty. For shooters who want the maneuverability of a pistol with the control of a rifle, the brace exploits a loophole that's been legally contested for years and still remains accessible in many jurisdictions. Cyclone/spiral knives. It doesn't look civilian, but it is. This is a blade designed with 2 or more cutting edges that spiral around the core, forming a helix that ends in a sharp, penetrating point. The geometry alone is unsettling. It looks like something engineered specifically to maximize tissue damage, and visually it's impossible to mistake for a kitchen knife or outdoor tool. While strictly banned in the UK, variations of spiral-edged knives remain legal in parts of Europe where blade design restrictions focus on length and carry context rather than edge configuration. In regions where they're permitted, collectors prize them for their mechanical complexity and the craftsmanship required to forge a functional helical edge. Zombie-style machetes. This looks like it belongs in a restricted facility. These are blades over 8 inches long with serrated edges, multiple perforations, protruding spikes, or more than 2 sharp points. They're not designed for brush clearing or agricultural work. They're designed to look like props from apocalypse films. The aesthetic is pure aggression, saw-toothed edges, skull-crusher pommels, blade cutouts that serve no practical purpose beyond visual intimidation. Recent UK legislation targeted these specifically, requiring surrenders under weapons amnesties due to their association with street violence. But in other European jurisdictions, owning one on private property or transporting it with legitimate purpose remains legal. For survivalists and collectors drawn to tactical aesthetics, the zombie machete represents the intersection of pop culture and blade design. The Spyderco Metropolitan. At first glance, this looks harmless, and that's exactly the point. The Metropolitan is a folding knife engineered specifically to comply with the UK's strict blade laws. Non-locking, slip-joint mechanism, blade under 3 inches. It checks every box required for legal everyday carry in one of the world's most restrictive knife jurisdictions, but it's built with M398 steel, premium material typically reserved for high-performance blades. The finger choil design prevents the blade from snapping shut on your hand during use, a safety feature that compensates for the lack of a locking mechanism. This isn't a compromise. It's a precision-engineered solution to a legal problem, proving that compliance doesn't require sacrificing quality. For EDC enthusiasts in restrictive countries, the Metropolitan represents the cutting edge of legal design. Plegium Smart Spray. It doesn't look civilian, but it is. Traditional pepper spray is illegal in Belgium, the Netherlands, and several other European countries. The Plegium Smart Spray is marketed as a legal alternative in some of those same jurisdictions. It uses a similar irritant formula, but the SMART designation comes from integrated tech, GPS tracking, alarm activation, and app connectivity that alerts emergency contacts when deployed. The legal distinction often hinges on classification. Is it a weapon, or is it a connected safety device? In regions where chemical self-defense is otherwise banned, the Smart Spray navigates the gap by positioning itself as technology first, deterrent second. The self-defense umbrella. At first glance, this shouldn't be legal. It's a fully functional umbrella, Opens in the rain, keeps you dry, but the shaft is reinforced steel, the tip is sharpened metal, and the entire structure is weighted for impact. It's designed to be used as a stabbing or striking weapon during an assault, while remaining visually indistinguishable from an ordinary rain accessory. In countries with near-total bans on weapons, the self-defense umbrella exists in a legal gray area. You're not carrying a weapon, you're carrying an umbrella. The fact that it's built like a medieval mace is incidental. For commuters in restrictive jurisdictions, it offers a layer of protection that fits in a briefcase and passes through security without a second glance. Tactical pens. It doesn't look civilian, but it is. This is a pen made from aircraft-grade aluminum with a reinforced carbide or steel tip. It writes. It functions as a normal writing instrument in every practical sense, but it's also designed to strike pressure points, break tempered glass, and deliver focused impact to soft tissue. Tactical pens are legal to carry even in the UK, Belgium, and other countries where most self-defense tools are banned outright because they're pens. They serve a legitimate everyday function. The fact that they're also impact weapons is a feature that exists in the space between design and intent. 12-gauge bean bag rounds. This looks like it belongs in a restricted facility. These are shotgun shells loaded with tightly woven bags filled with lead shot instead of pellets. When fired, the bag stays intact and delivers blunt force trauma instead of penetration. They're classified as less lethal, not non-lethal. At close range, they can break ribs, rupture organs, or cause fatal injuries. But compared to buckshot, they offer a compliance option that doesn't guarantee death. Law enforcement uses them for crowd control and suspect apprehension. In jurisdictions where shotgun ownership is legal, civilians can purchase beanbag rounds for home defense scenarios where escalation control matters. Fire into ballistic gelatin, and the impact crater tells you everything you need to know about the force involved. The smack round. At first glance, this shouldn't exist. It's a 12-gauge shotgun shell made by inserting a piece of hydraulic hose into a plastic case. No pellets, no slug, just a rubber cylinder designed to deliver a painful, non-penetrating impact. It was developed on a cattle property in Queensland, Australia, for rounding up livestock. Fire it near or at stubborn cattle, and the smack delivers enough sting to move them without injury. It's rudimentary, improvised, and legally sold as an agricultural tool in regions where less lethal livestock control is a recognized need. For ranchers dealing with aggressive or uncooperative animals, the smack round is a functional solution that looks absurd until you see it in action. Sword canes. It doesn't look civilian, but it is. This is a walking stick. Elegant. Wooden or metal shaft. Polished handle, the kind carried by gentlemen in period dramas. Except there's a blade concealed inside. Twist the handle and a sword slides free. Rapier style in some models, broadsword in others. They've been used as weapons of last resort since the 18th century, favored by aristocrats, duelists, and anyone who needed a blade that didn't look like a blade. While illegal in California and New York and restricted in the UK, sword canes remain legal to own in Texas with a permit and are widely collected across Europe as antiques or reproductions. For collectors, the appeal is the hidden mechanism, the craftsmanship, the idea that something so refined could also be so deadly. Kyoketsu Shoga. This looks like it belongs in a restricted facility. It's a double-edged blade with a curved hook attached to a length of rope, chain, or cord. It originated in feudal Japan as a tool for martial artists and shinobi operatives. The hook could snag limbs or weapons. The blade could cut. The rope could bind or strangle. In skilled hands, it's a multifunctional weapon system disguised as a farming tool. Modern reproductions are legal to own in many European countries as martial arts training equipment or collector's items, provided they're not carried in public without legitimate reason. For martial arts channels and historical weapons enthusiasts, the Kyoketsu Shoga offers visual complexity and demonstration value that few other traditional weapons can match. Manriki Gusari. At first glance, this shouldn't be legal. It's a length of chain with weighted ends. Sometimes hard metal balls, sometimes reinforced grips. Spin it, and it becomes a kinetic weapon capable of breaking bones or disarming opponents. Like the Kyoketsu Shoge, it originates from Japanese martial arts traditions. It was used by samurai and guards as a non-lethal compliance tool that could also deliver lethal force if necessary. The physics are simple: mass, velocity, and leverage. The technique is not. In jurisdictions where martial arts weapons are permitted for training or collection, the Manrikigasari remains legal, provided it's not carried as a concealed weapon in public. Ninja Claws. Doesn't look civilian, but it is. This is a bar of metal or hard material strapped to the claw, with protruding spikes or blades extending from the hand or elbow. It's a wearable weapon, the kind of thing that looks like it was designed for gladiatorial combat or medieval siege warfare, and legally in certain jurisdictions it still qualifies as martial arts training equipment. The novelty factor is extreme. The practical use case is almost non-existent outside of historical reenactment or niche martial arts demonstrations, but the fact that you can own something called Ninja Claws in a modern legal framework is a reminder that legality and common sense don't always overlap. Umarex Hammer. This looks like it belongs in a restricted facility. It's an air rifle, but it fires 50 caliber projectiles with over 700 foot-pounds of energy, enough to ethically harvest deer, hogs, and other large game. Most people think of air guns as low-powered training tools or pest control devices. The Hammer shatters that assumption. It's a big-bore hunting platform that rivals traditional firearms in terminal performance. Because it uses compressed air instead of gunpowder, it often falls under different legal classifications than firearms, making it a viable option in areas where rifles face seasonal restrictions or outright bans. For hunters navigating complex regulations, the Hammer represents a technological solution that delivers rifle-level performance without triggering firearm laws. Stealth knives. At first glance, this shouldn't be legal. These are blades made from materials that evade metal detectors: ceramic, hardened plastic, or composite polymers. They're designed to pass through security checkpoints undetected. The concept alone is alarming. A weapon engineered specifically to bypass the tools designed to find weapons. While possession is illegal in many jurisdictions, the materials themselves aren't universally banned. The line between a legal material and an illegal weapon often comes down to intent and context. For collectors interested in material science or historical espionage tools, stealth knives represent the intersection of engineering and evasion. The NRS-2, the knife that is also a gun. This disrupts everything. It looks like a knife. Fixed blade, tactical handle, serrated edge. You could use it to cut rope, clear brush, or prepare food. Except there's a gun barrel integrated into the blade. The NRS-2 was developed for Soviet Spetsnaz units. It's not a ballistic knife. The blade doesn't launch. Instead, a small barrel aligned with the spine of the blade fires a 7.62 millimeter bullet. When you pull a hidden trigger in the handle, it cuts like a knife, it stabs like a knife, and it shoots like a gun. Owning one is heavily restricted in most countries, but as a historical military artifact, certain deactivated or replica versions exist in private collections across Europe. It's the ultimate hybrid. Kind of design that makes you double-check the laws just to confirm it's real. 21 gadgets, all real, all legal, at least somewhere. Some exploit loopholes. Others were designed to comply with laws that seem impossible to navigate. A few just exist in the gray space between tool and weapon. Which one surprised you the most? Because legality doesn't care how dangerous something looks. It only cares what the law says. And sometimes the law says yes.